Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kez, aka Chameleon Makeup. Today we're going to be talking blushes. So far I've done two videos for you. I've shown you all of my primers and I've shown you all of my foundations. As a huge makeup fan, hoarder, however you want to call it, so I thought I'd show you the products in each video and give you an idea of what they're like and methods for using them, etc, etc. But let's get on with the video. So I tend to have a lot of products. I go for both high-end and drugstore, and I don't really favour one over the other. The most important thing to me is whether it creates the result that I want and whether it gets the job done. So it doesn't matter whether I spend £2 or £20 as long as the product does what it's supposed to do. That's the important bit as far as I'm concerned. And that can range from sort of a bright makeup look or something more subtle. Each thing has its place and it's finding which one works for which. So there are a lot of different forms of blushes as well. There's powder blusher, but they also do a liquid blush, and then there's a cream to powder blush as well. There's a few different formulas that are available now, but mainly it tends to be either powder or liquid. Some of them are kind of hybrids and things like that, but I'm going to show you what I've got and what I use. One of the first ones that I got that I really loved was this one by Becca, and this is in shade Flower Child. I got this in a little set from QVC where you got the blush, a mini version of their primer sort of thing, and also their powder highlighter. I love this one. It's such a nice natural colour. So in terms of this one, this is the sort of blush that you'd use if you just wanted a nice natural look, which I think is really pretty. It's very pigmented because it is mineral, and the packaging's cute and it comes with a little mirror. You can get these in larger sizes, I think, but that one was a mini and it's still well used even today. So I've had that one a little bit of a while. There's a few different looks you might be wanting to create with your blusher as well. So you might want a general all over, just a slight flushed appearance so that you don't look too cakey, or you might want a very draped look so that you put the blush up there really high so that you've got a kind of 80s look, which they do actually call draping. Or you just might want something a bit brighter. There's so many different ways you can play with the products, and there's no sort of right or wrong. It's what sort of inspires you. I tend to use this sort of brush to apply the blusher. This one is from Spectrum. This is the Mean Girls one, and it's A21. It's very battered now. I've had to sellotape it because I've used it so often. But I'm just going to give you an idea. So what I usually do is I put it in the product, tap it off so that you don't get excess powder, and I just start on the apples of my cheeks, and I lightly touch it on and then build up the intensity, because I don't want a massive pile of red on my face that makes me look like I've been running. And you can see the difference straight away between that and that. It's very natural, but there is that sort of build up, and you can build that one up a lot brighter as well. So that is the advantage with powder blushes. This one is actually a baked highlighter by Makeup Revolution, but can also be used as a blush. It's called Bleeding Heart, and it's got quite a lot of blush in there in terms of the red colour, but it's also got a little bit of gold in. So you can either use it as a highlighter, or you could use it as a blush as well. It does build up the intensity of the red tone, but you can see that it's got that subtle highlight there. And the thing with this one is if you apply it damp, you can give it more intensity. So I think that does actually make sometimes quite a nice blush as well as a highlight. The Bleeding Heart, if you put it on, is quite glittery, but it does give a really nice soft shimmer. I would actually wear that as an everyday because it is quite gentle. It doesn't actually look too over the top. Considering it's a highlighter, you can actually use it for a nice natural look. This is one that I got fairly recently. Now this came in the advent calendar that I got this year, and this is P. Louise, and it's called Had Me Blushing, and it says it's the perfect pop of colour. I love the packaging on this. It's like a little heart, and it literally slides up so you can see that. And you've got like a peach tone underneath and then a reddier tone on the top. You can see them together. They sort of complement each other. This one, the pinky one, that's very bright, but not too bright. And the other one being more of a peachy tone, that's more like a subtle tone. The other thing with blush is what blush suits what skin types. Again, that is down to personal preference. For example, You may prefer your blush to look really bright. I'm deathly pale, as you can see from this side of my face, so I tend to have quite a lot of blush because it brings out the colour in my face. Some people prefer it a little bit more naturally, some just put it on the cheeks, some here and here to enhance those areas. One of the brands of blushes I discovered, which I didn't know about, was this one here. This is Cara Cosmetics, and I actually found these in TK Maxx. I think they're actually a Australian brand. When you get their blush palettes, this one's called Untamable, you get 3 powder blushes. So you get 2 matte ones, and then you get a shimmer one as well. So that one you could use like a blush highlighter, and then the powder ones as well. If you don't have any blush at hand and you do have an eyeshadow palette, you can use eyeshadow as blush as well. It's still powder, but what I would say is be very careful, because if you've got a really pigmented eyeshadow, then it's going to be really bright on the face, so you have to be a little bit careful with that. And I'm going to go for this one, which is more of a peachy tone, to the other one that I've shown you first, just to show you sort of the different colours. I'm going to look like an alcoholic with a red face by the time I finish this. And that one you see I've taken further over because it's more of a glowing flush. Because it's a lighter shade and it's more of a peachy, it's not quite as intense as the red. So it's a little bit more subtle. So in the Cara, these 3 shades, this one here is the peachy toned one. The middle one, which is a bit more sparkly, so it's not quite as pigmented, and the pinker one. So they all give quite nice pigment to them. Another powder blush that I've got that I really love is this BH Cosmetics one. They do a few different ones. This one is Fiji Fun, which is from their World Travel range. So you get the 2 different shades that mix in together. You've got like a darker pink and also the lighter pink, and it's got this beautiful pattern on it, which brings me to another video that I'll be doing soon about makeup that's too pretty to wear. Anyway, this has got a little bit of sparkle in it. It's like a highlight, so you could just use one or the other rather than using them together, but if you dip your brush in both, you can actually give yourself a little bit of a sparkle. I think possibly my favourite brand in terms of the powder blush is still always going to be Hourglass. Hourglass is quite expensive. It's more expensive than a lot of them that I've got, but it is really good quality and it lasts ages, and you always get a mix of highlighter and a blush in together, and they give really, really nice natural tones to your skin. It doesn't look too overdone, but you can build up the intensity quite a lot. I've got a few here, which I've built up over time. I've got Electra, Ethereal Glow and Luminous Flush in the individual ones. And then I've got a palette here, which is the Ambient, Luminous Flush, Mood Exposure and Electra. So this has got Electra in it again, and it's also got the Mood Exposure. I'm only going to show you the blushes, the others are highlighter. It's very sort of light and natural. But they're really, really nice. So these are good if you want a natural look and you don't want anything that's too bright. This is quite subtle. That one there is the Luminous Flush, which is the individual one. This one is the Ethereal Glow, which is my most used one. That's very, very subtle. You can barely see it, but I like it like that because I use it for work. I also have this one here, which is by Notoriously Morbid, which is an independent brand in the US. And I used to get like a sub box, and you get various different products in, and some of that included the mineral type blushes. This one is called Flames on the Side of My Face. Now this comes as a loose powder, so you do have to be a little bit more careful when applying it, and also because you get an awful lot of product, you only have to use a very little bit. And this is more of a highlighter one as well. You can see that highlights, but it's very pretty. You might not be seeing much difference in these blushes. That's because they are all very subtle. As I say, you can build them up a lot, but these are just the ones that work for me. This one is a lot more intense. This is from Revolution Pro, which is Makeup Revolution. This one's called Cranberry. Now if you look at this product and how it's shaped, and then you look at this product, you might see a pattern. So these are similar to the Hourglass ones. I wouldn't say they are dupes because the glitter in this is far more intense and the blush is also very bright. So I don't think they're as subtle, to be honest. That doesn't mean they don't have a place. If you want something a bit brighter, then they're definitely worth using. But you are going to get a lot of a brighter pop with them, which I'll show you. See, the intensity on that is a lot more. Right, I've removed a lot of that blush so that I can show you the other products I've got, because otherwise my face is just going to look like one big pink blob. The other powder one that I have is Violet Voss. This is in the Glamingo face palette. So it has got blushes and highlighters in, but we're just going to be focusing on those blushes today. And these also are quite intense in colour, which I like. So if I just do that, show you them on my hand. You can tell that I tend to go for pink tones or peach tones. I know they are also the main sort of two colours that you will get in blushes, and reds as well. But these are the tones that tend to suit me better because of the pasty skin. And I've also got the Fetish palette from KVD, also used to be Kat Von D. And this has got quite a few blushes in. The tops are highlights, but the bottom are blushes. And we've got Bathory, Salem and Coven in there. Excuse me. And these really are quite bright blushes if you didn't want to go for a subtle shade. They're quite nice, but they do pack a punch and they do sort of build up to be quite intense. And then I have my Bourjois blush here, which is Rose Blossom. I don't know whether these are still available anymore. This one's really pink. It's quite subtle, but I like it. Then I have this one here. This is from Benefit and this is called Havana. And that is a mix of both blushes and other powders. Now with these ones, they can be worn separately, but they're generally meant to be sort of swirled in together. They are lighter, but they do build up. I've took all of my Benefit ones out of the palettes and done them as singles because I want to put them in a custom palette. This one is Coralista by Benefit. And that's a very coral colour, like the name suggests. And then I've got Benefit Dandelion, which is one of their most popular blushes, and that's like a pink one. That doesn't show up so well on my skin, just because it's lighter. This one by W7 is called Honey Queen, and this is very similar to the Havana, as in it's got quite a few all mixed in together. But I don't think it's as pigmented, to be honest. You can tell the difference between that and that. But if you wanted the same sort of look and you didn't have the money, you could probably build it up. This one is sort of a hybrid again. It's kind of like a mixture between a blush and a highlighter. And this is Benefit's California, which it's very pink, but it's got a lot of highlight in it, as gold highlight as well. Again, it's subtle and can be built up. But once I've removed the makeup, it does actually show better. That's the California one. So now that I've shown you those, I'm going to show you the other type of, which is cream blush. So cream blush is still in a sort of format of being solid, but it's more of a cream consistency instead of a powder. I have this one here. I've got a couple of them. Again, found them in TK Maxx, but they're a brand called Tarina Tarantino, which I've got Coral Cameo and Mr. Pink. These come with the highlighter and the blush, but they're really intense. Even though they're like a cream consistency, they build up really well. And they are ones that you can use for a subtle look or a less subtle look. I really like that one. That one's Coral Cameo, which is quite surprising because in the pan, I thought that the pink one would appeal to me more. But when I actually try them on my skin, I prefer the other one. I've got one of my favourite palettes here, which is very sought after. I think it might have been discontinued now, but I'm not sure. It's by NARS, which is very popular for the blushes. This is kind of like a highlight stroke blush palette. So this is from their much sought after Exposed palette. And these are the blushes at the bottom. So I'm just going to show you these colours. they're the 3 shades that it comes in. You can see that that one's more peachy, that's more pink, and that's more red. They do have names to them. You Fling, Come Hither and Make You Mine. I think that the weakest of them is probably the peach one. So I'm just going to try and get a bit more of that product. It does come up eventually, but it takes time. The other 2 are much more pigmented. But sometimes they pick up better with brushes as well. And in the case of those ones, I think they do. And again, that's kind of like, that is more of a powder, but it's kind of like a cream powder hybrid, sort of a mixture. Another one of the mixtures that I've got is this one here. This is called Rebel Bouncy Blush, and it's a Kiko one. And this is really weird because it literally feels bouncy, like a sponge. It's very bright though, and it does build up really well. It's quite a nice blush. I like that one. Probably another one of my favourite blushes is this Laura Geller one. This is one of the gelato ones, and this is Plumberry. And they come in like a swirl, and it's almost like a cream powder type consistency. They're not very heavy, but they do pack a lot of colour. And if you build them up, they get more and more intense, which I really like, because you have the choice as to how bright you want it to be. My latest purchase is this one here from Studio London by Superdrug, and this is called Flaunt Flawless Cheek and Lip, and it's in shade Passion. I went in with my friend at the weekend and I saw this. This is more of a cream blush. It's very pretty colour. Again, I found it was quite intense, which I quite liked, but also gave off a subtle glow. So if you wanted to just look flushed and not look like you've actually worn makeup, like a no makeup look, so to speak, that would be the one for you. The last couple in the cream blush section, I have this one here. It was in a set of 3. Weirdly enough, it's a Paris Hilton makeup range, and I've got 2 of them, and the other was a highlight, and again TK Maxx, I'm always in there. And one is a holographic stick, which is kind of like a blush stroke highlight in one, which is very shimmery but got that pink glow to it. And then the other one is a lip and cheek stick, which is slightly more on the corally side. And the last one in the cream ones that I have, in the solidy ones, is this one here, which is from She Glam, which is a Shine makeup brand, or Shein if you want to call it that. I think that's how it's properly pronounced. And this is a glowing up skin stick in Midnight Hour. So it's designed to be a glowy blush, and you can see it packs pigment. That's probably one of the most pigmented ones I get. It does come with a brush on the other end as well, so you can sort of blend it. But I would use a very small amount of that at a time, because as you can see from my swatch, it does go everywhere. Okay, and the last ones I've got to show you are my liquid blushes, which again I'm a huge fan of. One of my favourites in the liquid blushes are these ones. They were jelly ones done by Rimmel. I don't know if they're still available anymore. Bubblegum Chum and Peach Punch. These are like a jelly consistency. Over time the gel does kind of disintegrate, so they don't last as long as some, but I just love the colours, and I've had them a long time, so they have worn down to nearly nothing now, which is a shame, but I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to find them online somewhere or other. If you can find sealed ones, then they tend to last a bit better. Because mine have been open, I just can't bear to part with them though, because I love the colours. Another Rimmel one I've got, this is the Stay Blushed, and again some of these are probably discontinued now because I've had them a long time. The one thing I will say about this one is, although it's like a creamy consistency, you get a lot of leakage out of it, so you get like the liquid separating. Some of that might be down to age, but I did find that when I first bought it, it was doing the same thing, so I don't think it's just an age thing. So give it a good shake before you use it. And that's a nice bright pink. I think that product's probably past it and needs to go now, but I wanted to show it you before I threw it away. One of my favourite products, sadly discontinued, much to my despair, is the Bourjois Healthy Mix Sorbet Blush, and I've got my eye on a few of these that are elsewhere. The good thing about them is they do come in a squeezy tube, which means you can get as much product out of them as possible. And believe me, when I come to the end of it, I will be cutting the tube open to get all the stuff out and keep it sealed in a different container for any that's left, because it's one of my favourite blushes. It's almost like a jelly and it looks really bright, but when it rubs in, it gives a really nice glow and it can be built up. It also smells of raspberries. It's amazing. It's probably one of my favourites. You can actually use this in blush. You can pop it on your lips. It's got vitamin in it as well, and so it's really, really good. And it does say on the product that it is meant to be buildable, so the more drops you use, the more intense the look. Also got Sleek. This is a Bare Kissed Illuminator in Casablanca. This is well used from what you can see. There's hardly any left. It is more like of a highlight blush. There's still plenty of product in there. The one thing I will say about the Sleek ones, as lovely as they are, you do find that a lot of product comes out at once, so you end up sometimes with too much. So I'd say if you're going to apply this, you might be better to put it on a bit of cotton or something, a mixing palette or something, before you actually apply it to your skin, because otherwise it goes everywhere. But it does give you a really nice natural blush. This is a very similar one. This is the Precious Metals Liquid Glow. This is by PS or Primark. I don't know if they've got this exact colour, but they do have other ones similar. And this is just called Liquid Glow. It did have a shade on it at one point, but I don't know what happened to it. It's classed more as a strobe cream, so it's more of a highlighter, but you can see it has got like a pinky tone to it. And so you could use it on its own just as a blush. I got this one from Makeup Revolution. This is called the Super Dewy Liquid Blush. I was hoping that this would be like the healthy mix. It's a very nice product, but I do find that it's very intense in colour. There's a lot of pigment in that, even in a little bit. And so I'm finding that one difficult to work with. What I do find helps with all of the blushes, if you've got one that's like that, that's really, really intense, and you really don't want to have a super red face, I'm going to give you a tip. What you can do to stop it being so intense is to take a little bit of your face cream, whatever moisturizer you use, and you apply it actually with that instead, because you can see it goes a long way with that. Now, the one thing I will say about this Revolution one is it tends to stain the skin quite a lot, so it takes some rubbing to get off. So what I'd suggest if you're going to use it is to get the moisturizer first, then get just a very small touch of the product, and you really don't need a lot. And if I show you the proportion of product, 3 parts to 2 parts moisturizer to 1 very small part of that, rub it in together and then apply it. See, that's a lot more sheer, and it also comes off the skin a lot easier. So that's something you can do in terms of watering down a blush that's too pigmented, if it happens to be a liquid blush. You could also add it under foundation instead of on top of it, so that the foundation dulls it down a little bit. This is another one that's a cream blush. This is the Hydrogel Cream Balm by Doll 10 in 16 again. I got this on QVC and I really like it. It's more of a balm, I'd say, but it rubs in really nicely, and although it's quite intense in colour, it's not overpowering on the skin, and so I use that one quite a bit in everyday looks. I've heard that the Made by Mitchell blushes are really, really good, and I can't wait to try them, but at the moment I don't have any of them to show you. Hopefully in another video I'll be able to do that. And I do know that they come in several different shades, so you can get bright ones, you can get more toned down ones, and they're fast becoming a staple in a lot of people's makeup kits, as are these ones here. These are by P. Louise and they're called The Cheek of It Liquid Blush. I have Strawberry Sunrise, Sun Kiss Mist and Tutti Frutti, so I've got 3 different shades. These come with like a spongy applicator, but what I found is when I tried to apply it with that, I found that it was too intense and I was getting too much of a blush. However, the tops do pop off, so if you wanted to just try the product and sort of rub in however much of the product you wanted instead, you can do that. So I think that's a great idea to sort of offer it as an option but be able to take it off, because different people apply in different ways and I just don't get on with that sort of applicator. So that one is the Strawberry Sunrise. You can see that one's quite bright. This one is the Tutti Frutti. So that's more of a lighty pink. And this one is the Sun Kiss Miss. That's sort of a more in between the two shades. Probably my favourite, I think, out of the three. And I've got one more blush to show you. I got these from Primark. I haven't seen them again since. These are the K-Pop Bubble Blushes. Started off in, I think it's Japan. And you get like a little compact with a mirror in. And then you get the little powder puff type applicator. And then it's a sponge, but it's a sponge filled with colour. And you push down on the sponge to release the shade. That one's a very sort of light peach. There isn't a lot of product left in that because I have used it a lot. And then this one is the pinker version. You can see from the applicators they're well loved. I have cleaned the applicators several times, but they stain because I don't have a lot of it left in. There we go, that's a bit better. Just because I've used them so much. So I'm looking out for another product that's similar to that one because I really enjoy how they apply. That's all of my blushes that I've got. I hope you've enjoyed seeing them all. I'd love to see some of your comments on what you think to these blushes. Is there any that you prefer or you think might be good? Is there any that you think I should try that would be worth mentioning in the comments for me to do in a future video? Always happy to hear from you. Thanks for watching. If you could like and subscribe as well as comment, that would be fantastic. I like to hear from you, and also it means that I can produce more content for you guys, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.